to me, what underpins it all is a rather, in some ways, sort of solid foundation of a constitution that does not expect Americans to be the greatest people on earth, which expects Americans to be among the worst people on earth, and sets up a system of government that allows each particular branch to fight one another and each particular institution to fight each other in the hope of maintaining freedom. And by and large, it's worked in ways that that hasn't worked elsewhere. I would say one other small thing, which is the sheer democratic feel of American life, the sheer ability to say hi to anybody and have a civil response back. People talk about London as being a kind of civil or stuffy kind of place, and they're just wrong. They're getting that from Masterpiece Theater or somewhere. This country is so civil in so many of its day-to-day interactions, and the culture of equality, I think if you haven't lived elsewhere, you don't really see it, and that's maybe why, you know, I felt so grief-stricken when this happened, because I felt that something of American innocence and civility had been lost in September 11th.
Pittsburgh, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Brian. I wanted to just say a few comments and questions to both your guests, Andrew and Christopher. Christopher, it's your old contrarian buddy, Brian, in Pittsburgh.
Oh, hi, Brian.
You actually, you don't look that bad today. I've seen you worse in the morning.
Where are we going with this?
Well, that said, my comments are, though, as after the World Trade Center and all the terror, we did have to strike back. I am glad that Afghanistan is where it's at today, and as opposed to all those years of tyranny under the Taliban. But that said, there's also a danger that I feel that a government can exploit that for a sense of perpetual terrors. I mean, we're always going to have a fear of there's always terrorists out there, whether it's in Iraq, North Korea, or then Plan Colombia in South America, and that a government could get away with like a perpetual. We're not, you know, at a state of martial law, but there's like always the danger of just over abusing that, extending heightened states of security to call for militias and things like that. And I'm just wondering what either Andrew or you feel about that.
All right, let me just ask you, though, before we lose you, why are you Mr. Hitchens' great contrarian? I mean, have you seen him before?
He came to, well, I've met him, and known him for a while, but he came to Pittsburgh to teach, and I did a cover story. I followed him for about 4 months, and I did a cover story for a sort of like a Village Voice publication in Pittsburgh.
Thanks. And what did you think of the piece?
So great, in fact, is this country that I could have been and was for a whole semester the Andrew W. Mellon Professor of English at the University of Pittsburgh, to whom you have the honor of addressing.
Now, he might have felt differently than Scoop Jackson.
It was another great American, Randolph Bourne, during the First World War, who made the imperishable remark that war is the health of the state. And there are a lot of people on the left and on the right who worry at the moment that states of emergency lead to the aggrandizement of the state, to the inflation of state power, and so on. That's a worry that someone who's enthusiastically in favor of the war on Islamic fascism can perfectly well share, and I do, for one, certainly.
On the front page of the Post today, I'll just read you the first paragraph, and the headline, Intricate Screening of Flyers in Works, Robert O'Hara, Jr. Federal aviation authorities and technology companies will soon begin testing a vast air security screening system designed to instantly pull together every passenger's travel history and living arrangements, plus a wealth of other personal and demographic information. Marion, Pennsylvania, on the Democratic line. Hello. Marion, are you there?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
All right.
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
My apologies.
It'll never sound the same.
I've been reading Nietzsche. I hope these two gentlemen can help me on this.
Oh, dear.
I've been absolutely floored by some of the things that I've been reading. He talks about good and evil. I also talk about that a peaceful nation or peaceful people tend to be cowardly because the ones that we put up as the victors are the ones that defy the morals that lead to controlling your emotions and controlling, your ambitions. Now, we live in a country we are great, but we instill in our citizens a sense of fearlessness. So therefore, the punishment for overcoming the mores, as we do, we have to upgrade or shift our penalties into higher gear to try to control our citizenship. He also spoke about other nations that a country that goes to war and says they're doing it for defense always has to undermine the morals of the other country and take the superior position.
Why, by the way, caller, are you reading Nietzsche?
I just picked up this book. It's The Portable Nietzsche. It's written by Walter Kaufman, and he's one of the great experts on Nietzsche. I
like the idea of Nietzsche being portable. That would be the last word that would usually come into.
You don't.
I think Mr. Bin Laden has been reading him too, because it struck me in the early statements that they made, and many of the interviews that these gangsters have given, they say that defeating the Soviet Union was the really tough thing. That was really hard, but defeating the United States would be relatively easy, because it's so soft and corrupt and immoral and so. I'd like to think that they've got that exactly the wrong way around, that defeating the Red Army was the easy part. But they made a fantastic miscalculation if they think that just because Americans have a tendency maybe to be a little complacent, a little inward-looking, and too accustomed to luxury, that they would be a pushover. I'm sure, absolutely sure that that's wrong.
It's also
but that we have to prove it.
It's a fascinating moment to bring up Nietzsche because, and I think everybody should read him just to find out what's wrong. What Nietzsche was about, essentially, at least in some respects, was to say that there is no such thing as evil as such. That we can go beyond good and evil, that all these absolutes are actually all relatives, and that they can be recreated by anybody with sufficient imagination, that there is nothing solid beneath all of this. That he, in some ways, is one of the most influential philosophers of modernity in that respect. And what this war is partly about is saying, there is something called evil. The murder of thousands of civilians for a theocratic fascist cause is evil. And a constitution which defends religious tolerance and respects human life is good. And we are about to fight that evil with this good. And we'll do so also against this of course is the huge news of this week. We will do so also with respect to the despotic regimes in Iran and Iraq. And I think, therefore, Nietzsche is entirely appropriate.
Let's go to Alpine, California, the Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. A couple other things before I ask Mr. Sullivan something on the greatest nation in the world. It depends who you ask. Ask the children or the parents of the children who come to this country to have our doctors fix their facial deformities, or work. There's a lot of heroes that we never hear about in this country. Our hospitals accept people without money. Some of them, not all of them, of course, but some of them.
By no means. By no means all.
And ask the survivors of the Holocaust. Who the greatest country is. Mr. Sullivan, I visited your website yesterday because I knew you were going to be on today. I am a very strong believer in equal employment opportunity for everybody. I don't care who they are. Equal housing. I don't believe anybody should be discriminated against on the job or for housing or whatever, or harassed. However, this issue that you have with same-sex marriages, and that was a big issue on your website yesterday. I think, to me, that's a step backwards. I really do. I think it's just. I think it works against the family values. I think that it's benefiting the few for the detriment of the many, if that makes sense to you. And I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No, I'm sure you're not. And